Hey, patrons. We requested and we got some wonderful questions from you. Thank you so much to Jeanette King, who wrote back to us with some questions. We thought this would be a good opportunity to give you a little extra content, some little perks. So to thank you all for being patrons, we really, really appreciate your support of the Flower Essence podcast. And we wanted to address a few of these questions with our opinions and takes on them. I'm sure there's lots of possibilities, but we would like to share what we think about it.
Yeah. So the first question is, are there any contraindications to be aware of when employing flower essences? Perhaps energetic interference of things that compete or undermine or counteract the intent of the essences being used? Great question.
It is a really good question, and it's like those each of those two pieces has a lot to say. So I would like to start out with the are there any contraindications, which I think is an easy question to answer because no is the answer to that. You don't have to worry about doing any other kinds of herbal or any other kinds of medications or anything like that. None of them are on the same level or wavelength as flower essences. The only thing where you might have a little bit of a contraindication would be if you're using homeopathics, because they are quite similar in the wavelength. They're both vibrational remedies. So there are times when you wouldn't want to mix and match using them both together, because a lot of times with homeopathics, you're trying to get one particular vibration to ring in the body, as it were, rather than with flower essences where we tend to do quite a few. Do you have a take on that, Ro?
Yeah, it's funny. I was just asked about the homeopathic question recently, and it's the same. It depends, right? It depends on what you're doing with the homeopathic remedies. Like if you're putting a homeopathic cream on your body, it's going to be fine. If you're taking a, a homeopathic, let's say you're taking arnica at night for sore muscles, like that's kind of like an acute thing, and I don't see a lot of issue with combining that with I mean, maybe not at the exact same time. You want to spread it out a little bit, but I don't see that being a challenge. But when you're definitely working with a homeopath and maybe you have a constitutional remedy or whatever, you want to check the homeopath would be the one to answer that question about what you can and shouldn't do with the flower essences in conjunction with that.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. And the question about the energetic interference or things that compete or undermine or counteract the intent of the essences being used. Oh, we could just unpack that one for days. I don't think that there's a lot of problem with the energetic interference issue. I've never experienced an essence becoming weakened or, injured, as it were, from being exposed to, short-term, radiation, like, if you walk near a microwave or something like that, you don't have to throw all your essences away. I know that I talked to Jane Bell a few times about, in the good old days when people would travel, you can take your essences with you on the plane, even if they have to go through the x-ray, it's not going to hurt them. You wouldn't want to make a lifestyle out of putting all your essences through x-ray, but for a short period of time or once or twice, it's not a big deal. So I don't think that that's a real problem. What do you do anything particular with your essences to protect them or shield them?
The mother essences are the ones that I do that try to keep like in a little um keep the light away from and keep them in their boxes and kind of tucked away and not sitting next to like a Wi-Fi router. But otherwise, not really. I kind of have them all over the place and I haven't noticed any challenges with that. I think they're pretty hardy.
Yeah, I agree. The thing that I feel the most about is that the essences have an intelligence to them. They have an innate quality of connection to the intelligence of this particular aspect of nature. So I think they have a little bit stronger resilience. I don't worry about them quite as much as I might with some other types of vibrational medicines. The aspect about competing, undermining, or counteracting the intent of the essences, that's a really intriguing question the competing, I'm not quite sure I understand what she's asking, but undermining, counteracting. So the way that I would recommend somebody work with essences is to have in mind your intent as you're taking your essences. If you're taking them kind of unconsciously or just sort of rushing and doing this and that and the other thing, and you're just kind of stuffing them in yourself, I think that you're going to get less of an impact. You're going to get less of a connection because they really do want to connect with you as you take your essences. You're going to get more out of them if you're more connected to them.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Mhm.
So we
Yeah, well,
move.
I mean, just I'm just curious about this competing and undermining the essences. This is kind of an interesting theory because I just wanted to think it through a little bit and think, is there anything that would undermine your essence, undermine your essence? I think that if you were doing sort of if your intention was something that didn't ring true to you, I
Mm.
think that that could potentially undermine the impact of your essence. This is kind of one of my little bugaboos is with intention statements is that they feel true, that they don't set off your bullshit meter. Because if your intention is, I am joyous and abundant and, I'm a millionaire, whatever it might be, and that's not true, I feel this little clench in my gut when I say something like that because I know that's nonsense. And in order to continue saying it, now I'm saying nonsense to myself. And my head is saying one thing, but my body says, nope. That sets up a dissonance in your body. And I don't think that that allows you to be vibrationally intact to connect with the essence. So I think that that would be a case of undermining your intention.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of flows into this the other question about how much the intention goes in. Well, I guess goes into creating it, but I mean, with taking it, we always say, you don't need to necessarily believe in flower essences to get the benefit. Obviously, we give them to children and animals, and they don't need to have any consciousness about what they're doing in order to get a benefit. But for adults, I do what, if they actively don't believe in it, like are so skeptical that they're like, this isn't going to work for me. Well, then they're kind of making that come true. I feel like that attitude overrides um the vibration somehow. Is that your experience too?
I think that's pretty legitimate, and I think that our free will is so powerful that we
Yeah.
can we can override that the healing benefit. Because why would the essence want to work with you if you didn't want to work with them? Let's say,
Yeah. Like a slap in
so.
the face to the plants.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that they would even take it personally, but they'd just be like, moving on. I don't. This is not my person. I agree that you don't have to believe in them at all, and you just have to have a certain amount of openness or a certain amount of willingness. And like you were saying, with animals, they don't, obviously they can't give the same level of consent that an adult can. But if their person wants it and they're willing to take it, which I find that if an animal doesn't give you consent, they won't actually take. They'll try to like put their head away and they're like, I don't want that. So that to me is the consent factor for an animal. With a child, obviously, there's probably a very similar sort of piece, but usually if the parent or guardian comes and the child is usually willing to take an essence. But with a partner or another adult, you do absolutely have to have agreement and consent to put anything in their water or what have you, because it ain't cool to stick essences in somebody who didn't agree to it.
So I guess what that boils down to, it's as far as what can undermine the essence, it's really our own brains, our own thought process that might undermine it if we're not on board. I mean, the flower essence is really the whole concept of this vibrational medicine is that that connection, that synchronicity that the flower essences find with your body, and it's like a two-way street. So you can't have it can't work if it's a one way situation, I guess.
Yes, exactly. It's partnership. We're partnering with
Yeah.
nature. It's not, it's,
Resonance. That's the word I was looking for,
mhm,
right? There needs to be a resonance. That
yeah.
seems to me how the essences actually work in the body. But if you're blocking off that energy flow of the resonance, you're basically in effect blocking it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And why would it try to fight you when that's not what you want?
Yeah, it's not a drug, so it's not going to override you like a pharmaceutical would.
Boom, there you go.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that precisely wraps that one. That's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
well said. Yeah, awesome.
Okay, so we were going to take on another question, and that is, does the recommended frequency of use slash duration vary between essences and blends? For example, are some only needed once a day, whereas another recommends taking a spray of it 4 times a day for maximum benefit?
This to me is a matter of opinion. I think what you find on the label, so if you would buy something over the counter, like you buy one of the Flourish blends from FES, and it says to do, X number of sprays, this many times a day. I think that any of those are going to be starting points for you, rather than rigid, this must be done precisely this way. It Essences do work on a repetition basis. They work on a, sort of how often, how frequently, for what period of time. So that's going to vary in the result that you're going to get. What I find is that if you engage with an essence more frequently, for a period of time, you're going to get results faster than if you were to do, like if you did 4 times a day rather than once a day. I think that you'll see results more quickly, and you'll see maybe the process will be smoother also. So something that will happen sometimes is if you start to feel movement, if you start to feel something changing and shifting within you, that you want to keep going with your essences and keep taking them to help this process go through, rather than sort of slamming the door shut the minute that you start to feel some movement. So what do you like to recommend?
Yeah. So, and also this depends on are you taking it as like a constitutional remedy? Maybe you're working with a florist practitioner and they give you a custom blend. Well, that's one that you're going to want to use according to that kind of structure. It's frequency, not it's yeah, not the amount you take, but really how often you take it. Like you were saying, that helps you to move the dial on the challenge that you're dealing with. But again, it's not like a medication, so it doesn't have to be like every 4 hours, or like it's just totally fluid. um but if it's an essence that you're taking for a specific situation, like an acute thing, like maybe it's rescue remedy because something um traumatic just happened, or maybe it's something because you are trying to get to sleep and you have a sleep blend, and that's different. Or if you have like a specific blend for those one-off scenarios, um, then that's obviously not something that you're going to be taking 3 or 4 times a day every day. So that's a factor too, is the reason that you're using it, and if it's a acute situation or a constitutional remedy.
Yeah, exactly. If you're in a crisis kind of scenario, I recommend to my clients to have your rescue remedy, or whatever crisis formula you're using, whether it's soul support or what have you, to have it with you. I mean, even carrying it in your hand when you're going through a really intense period of time, and then take a drop every 10 minutes. I mean, just like as often as you need it. If you've got a little bottle of water, you can dose your bottle and then just keep sipping on it until it helps move it through. So that is those kind of, like you're saying, those kind of crisis or topical based kind of scenarios, like
Or
about a
room
topic,
sprays
not,
or things like
yeah.
that. Yeah, that's just whenever you feel like it.
Exactly. There really is no harm. You can't overdo it.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
that bridges into one of the questions about like how much to take, because like you're saying, it's vibration. It's not a mg per kg kind of situation where you're dosing, the body weight. So taking 1 drop is the same as taking 10 drops. But you'd be much more effective if you took 1 drop 10 times a day rather than 10 drops 1 time a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the more often you engage with the essence, the better off you are. Has really nothing to do with how much you put in at any given time or put on at any given time, because you can use essences topically as well, really, really effectively.
Yeah.
And the spray, I like, because she added a little piece about taking a spray, and I don't know whether she's talking about a lot of the essence formulas come with a spray cap that are meant to be taken internally under the tongue, say, which I really like the spray cap myself. I find that really handy, and not to have to worry about contaminating a dropper bottle, dropping it, that kind of thing. But there are also some like mist formulas that have a little bit of essential oil in that are intended to be used sort of as a room mist or externally applied. And those, I still don't think that there's any problem doing them as often as you bloody well please. But those are just different. They're built differently, and they're not meant to be like as constitutional generally. They're more of, like you're saying, situational. If you needed something like the soul support makes a lovely external spray with mist with a little bit of lavender in it that just kind of helps create this space around you and helps you feel really safe in that space. So that would be something that you could just keep with you and use it as often as you felt like. That would be really a good use of it. Support you through some sort of crisis.
Yeah, that's a good differentiation. I mean, I deliver my custom blends in an oral spray bottle. So the oral spray, that's just another way of taking it internally. But the spray mists are the ones that you were just mentioning, and those can be used in your, to clear the space around you as an aura spray. Anything like that, that's fine to use whenever you want. And I don't think it necessarily, it doesn't preclude also using your constitutional blend.
It's an and, not an or.
Right. Right.
And that does bring for me the next question of, or not the next question, but a similar related question to, partners, spouses, house sharing people, that you do not have permission to give essences in their water. They didn't give that permission, but I feel like you can totally use a spray. You're treating shared space, so you can definitely, when you don't have that availability, when that person or people don't want to engage in flower essence work themselves, you can always sort of treat the space, and that can be a really nice way of dealing with other humans because that's a thing. But I would just recommend go ahead and spraying the corners of the room on like a couple times a day to help clear and repattern the space after, if there's been conflict or what have you. But that's a nice, like, legitimate use where other people might be impacted, but they're not being impacted against their will, as it were.
Right. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent
But please,
point.
please, no passive aggressive use. Don't walk up to them and like hit them with it. That's not cool. Do the room. It's fine. Okay. All right. So I think that covered a couple questions. We're gonna space out our questions and enjoy hearing more questions. Perhaps you've been listening to the podcast and wanting to hear us address a particular thing that we haven't even thought about. We didn't even know anybody wanted to know. Maybe these are things that we just have been doing this for so long, we forgot that was a question we had when we got started. So please let us know. Give us your questions. We love to hear them, and we would like to address them in this way.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Topic ideas too. So
Absolutely.
whatever you have for us, we are listening.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye now.